All right, we're going to do some finding missing dimension work. So we are on Unit 7, Day 4. You should have this worksheet out. You should have your reference sheet out. And you should have a calculator. If you don't have those things, oh, and a pencil. If you don't have those things, please get those before you begin. So press pause and make sure you have those. All right, so we're going to start by figuring out which shapes that we have, okay? And so this first one is a cylinder. So we're going to look up volume, make sure you're under volume, okay? And volume of a cylinder. Volume equals pi r squared h. And so we're going to write volume equals pi r squared h. Okay, I'm actually going to move on, and we're going to start just by writing the formulas and figuring out what shapes we have. So this right here is a cone. If you look at it sideways, you'll kind of see it's a cone. Okay, so we're going to go to volume again right here and look for cone, and that's volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. So copy that on down. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Right? And this last one is not a circle, okay, because circles we would be finding the area. It's volume and it's a sphere. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay. All right, so we've got, let's start here. We're going to start plugging in the things that we know. Okay, so it says the volume equals 250 feet cubed. So we're looking at the number 250. We don't use feet cubed in our formula. So 250 represents our volume. And you've got to figure out which letter represents our volume, and it's V. So instead of writing V, I'm writing 250. Pi does not change. I'm using 3.14. Okay, my radius is going to be this distance, not the whole way across. So we want half of 8, which is 4, and that's squared. And my height, we don't know. All right, so we've got, we need to solve for h. All right, so you should have your calculators, and we're going to start by multiplying those two. So 3.14 times 4 squared. And that's 50 and 24 hundredths. So 50.24 times the height equals 250. Right? And so since this says 50.24 times h, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, one side it cancels. And so then I'm only left with the height. So that means this is going to be our answer. Okay, so make sure we enter this right. So in your calculators, it's 250 divided by 50.24. So 250 divided by 50.24. All right, so this is quite the long answer, and we're going to round to the ones place here. Okay, so if I have, let me do this, 4.9, and I'm rounding to the ones place, I'm either going to leave it at 4 or give it a shove to 5. And that 9 says give it a shove to 5. So my height is 5 feet. And remember, we don't cube this because 5 does not represent the volume, it represents the height. Okay, and our height is a single dimension, so it's just 5 feet. All right, let's go on to this next one. We've got, oh, they're telling us we're looking for the height. Oh, and right there, it told us right there too, we were looking for the height. So 5 feet. All right, so we're looking for the height here. So that means the volume is 7,200. So 7,200, that's a 7, equals 1/3 times 3.14. My radius is 15. Okay, they don't give us the full distance across, so the radius is 15 squared. Make sure you've got that squared times the height. All right. I have one student who is doing this, kind of separating that 1/3 since we divide by 3 at the end when we're finding volume. So we always want to get rid of fractions first. And so we know that this fraction says 1/3 times the rest of this, and the opposite is multiplying. Problem is we don't multiply fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal, right? And the reciprocal of 1 over 3 is 3 over 1. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. This is going to give us a big number, and that's okay. The good news is this 1/3 and this 3 over 1 cancel. Okay, so we're left with just what's inside this parentheses. Let's use our calculator and do this over here. Okay, we've got 3 times 7,200, which equals 21600 equals 3.14 times 15 squared. Actually, if you haven't written this already, let's go ahead and multiply these already. Let's multiply in our calculator. 3.14 times 15 squared. Okay, so then instead of rewriting this, I can just write 706.5 times h. All right. So I only have one number with h, and it's multiplying, and the opposite is dividing. So we're going to divide this by 706.5, and what I do to one side, I do to the other. All right, go ahead and press pause. Make sure you've got this all written down, okay? Because you do have to have this written down. I'll be back and checking your work. Equals, and in your calculator, make sure you're doing this division right there, and then checking with me. All right, so we get 30.57. We're going to round to the ones place again. So I actually don't need that 7. That 7 doesn't matter, right? So I look to the 5. And we're either rounding this to 30 or 31. And remember, 5 and above, give it a shove. So this 30 turns into 31. So our height is 31. All right? All right. Now we've got a sphere. I'm going to erase. Yeah, okay. Okay, we're looking for the radius. So our radius will be the variable left. Okay, our volume, oh, we have pi in our answer. That's awesome, because remember what happens with those pi's. They cancel out on both sides, right? So we have 288 pi is our volume, equals 4/3 pi r cubed. I don't have anything else to plug in. Okay, you might remember pi divided by pi, those ends up canceling each other out. Right, so I'm going to rewrite this so it's a little clearer, a little less messy. Okay, so since these are multiplying, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, but we don't divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply this side by 3/4. This entire side kind of gets multiplied. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, if you're not sure what's going on, go ahead and rewind that. Make sure you do. If you need to rewrite it so it's clear, go for it. But please make sure that you've got this written down. If you have to pause, pause it and write it down. All right. So I'm going to remind you, we've got 2 sides. We put this over 1. Okay, remember we do the opposite so that we can cancel something out. Okay, so that 3/4 and the 4/3 cancel out. And I'm left with r cubed over here. All right, and I'm going to multiply straight across, right? 288 times 3 and that's 864. And 1 times 4 is 4. So I need to take this 864 divided by 4. Divided by 4 equals 216. All right. So now we're still not solved because we've got that cube, right? And so what's the opposite of cubing a number? Taking its cubed root. Okay, but what I do to one side, I do to the other. Right, those cancel, and then I've got to take the cubed root of 16. So remember in your calculator, you can do this. I bet some of you even know this. Remember, you know the cubed root of 125 is 5, right? So you probably know this better than you're thinking, but we can look at the calculator. So cubed root, remember, is right here, this x cubed. Sorry, that root with the x on it, okay? But we need to press this button after the second button, okay? So I'm going to zoom out. It's tricky because we've got to press the 3 first, okay? And then the second button, and then this right there, okay? And then we've got 216 equals, and it's 6. So our radius is 6.